Have you ever hitched a ride on a train through the Sahara Desert or discovered a floating grocery store? My guest today has, and that's only the beginning. Meet Brooke King, a bold adventurer with an unshakable sense of purpose. From surviving thyroid cancer to gearing up for a transoceanic row to raise cancer awareness, Brooke's journey is packed with grit, grace, and the relentless pursuit of a meaningful life. Buckle up. This is one adventure you won't want to miss. Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey. Jake, I'm so glad you're here. If you love stories of courage, wild adventures, and living life to the fullest, you're in the right place. Today, I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Brooke King, an adventurer through and through. Despite currently battling thyroid cancer, Brooke is embracing life with strength, purpose, and a fearless spirit. Before we jump into our conversation, just a few quick housekeeping items. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. You can also watch full episodes on YouTube and connect with me on Instagram at Journey with Jake Podcast. And I'm proud to be part of the Podmatch Podcast Network. Check out more amazing shows at podmatch.com/network. It was truly an honor to speak with Brooke King. If this episode resonates with you, I also recommend checking out episode 147 with Charles Reynolds as he shares his powerful journey through the Darien Gap. All right, let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Brooke King. All right, I'm excited today. I have Brooke King on the show with me. Brooke, welcome to Journey with Jake.
Hi, Jake. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, this is exciting. I was looking at your story and who you are. First of all, you're super adventurous, which is what attracts me at first because I'm doing an adventure podcast. Love to hear people's stories and experiences with adventure. You've got that going for you. But then also your story with some trials and tribulations, some things that have set you back a little bit that you're overcoming. So I want to dive into all that. Before we do that, though, like I always do on the show, I want to know a little bit about your background, kind of where you're from, who you are, just so we kind of have a base of who Brooke is.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. I appreciate it. That's like one of my favorite compliments ever, being called adventurous. So I'm glad
Beautiful.
that's what's happening now. But yes, I'm Brooke. I'm originally from Chicago, from the Midwest, born and raised there, and then moved there after school. So really kind of saw my entire life there. And then as we all had those kind of life moments with COVID of what am I doing? How am I structuring my life? I had that as well, where I was still in the city, and I had been fortunate to be a homeowner at that time when many of my friends were not. So my vision of the city completely got flipped upside down from that experience where I was the only one there in the ghost town. Everyone I knew had like mass exodus the city. And I had always had this drive to try weird and wild activities like the ones you're talking about. And I think COVID really opened that door for me. So about 3 years ago, I decided I was just going to sell my house and move on the road. And I went down a path of completely doing the van life, lived out of a school bus, found some alternative housing, which was also really, really interesting. I didn't even know there was stuff outside of van life where you could live like that, but actually in city centers. That was really awesome. And then while I've been going through and doing those types of adventures, I was diagnosed with cancer. And that was about 7 months ago at this point, which at the age of 29, living the healthy lifestyle that I had was a huge shock. And now it really opened the door for me to saying yes even more than I already do, to understanding there's no time to waste. Of wow, like I really love the activities I've been doing. I love the joy that it brings to my life, the fulfillment that it brings to my life, the joy that I feel like it brings to others. And it's never been more important now that I've gone through this cancer diagnosis, and I still do have cancer. it'll be probably about a year before I can even consider saying that I'm in remission just based on the treatments that I'm going through. And I wanted to make sure that even though I went through something so hard, I was still seeking that joy and trying those hard things like I have been for the past 3 years. So I'm very grateful I set my life up that way. But yeah, that's what's drawn me to what I am doing today, which is what I'm calling Road to Remission, where I will be manually rowing across the Mediterranean Sea from Barcelona to Ibiza. It's about a 3 day long row. And so I'm very, very excited about that. And that's kind of my background.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot going on. I think it's amazing too that you kind of started these adventurous bucket list items really before you even were diagnosed with cancer. So you kind of had that adventure streak going a little bit. When you're growing up in Chicago as a kid, were you an adventurous kid? Did you like to do adventurous things? Was your family that way?
Yeah, it 100% runs in my family. My dad is a super thrill seeker. He's the kind of guy where he does solo, like hella skiing trips. He's super badass and very much encouraged that. And I think we always joke too, because he's a dad of two daughters. So it's just him against three ladies. And so he kind of like brought me and my sister into his sports. So he was always challenging us when we were young. And we were always the kind of family that said, you should try and live outside of the box. And I think that's really what I was seeking 3 years ago is we had this life altering experience, everyone in the whole world, that there's not one way to live. Like, you don't have to live this specific 9 to 5 structured lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be like going and hitchhiking in the middle of the Sahara Desert like I did. Like, it doesn't have to be that extreme. But I think I gravitate towards things that feel scary and challenging. It makes me feel alive and it puts me in motion. And it almost is like it really helped me with my cancer too, because I got diagnosed and I was like, wow, the only thing I knew how to do right now is act and find the positives in this situation. And so it was a lot of how I was raised, and we're super outdoorsy family. Like, I grew up like hunting and fishing with my dad. He would take me on like trips. We went to Alaska together and did some offshore fishing. So it was definitely built into me at a young age, and I've taken it to kind of the next level, if you will, at this point.
Oh, without a doubt. And your sister, is she pretty active as well? Is she pretty adventurous?
Oh yeah, she's actually an Olympic weightlifter. Not like for the Olympics, but it's a style of weightlifting, and she does all like the CrossFit games. We're a very active family and have been since we were young. Like, we actually even started the women's lacrosse team at my high school. Like, just being like, if something didn't exist, we were like, we'll make it happen. Was has always been since I was a really young girl.
Wow. Okay, so did you go outside of Chicago then to go to school? Is that what I understood?
I did, yes. I went
Okay.
to the University of Michigan for school. So very Midwestern. You can take the girl out of the Midwest, but you can't take it out of the girl. I am absurdly Midwestern.
So, all right, good. So you're Wolverine. You went to the University of Michigan. Good
Hmm.
for you. I've been on the campus there. Beautiful campus. Love the University of Michigan. So that's a beautiful place to go. Tell me about that moment. Then you moved back to Chicago. You were actually so you owned a place in the city, like the city itself.
Yeah, I bought an apartment like pretty soon out of school. I worked to save as much money as I could, and I actually graduated college early so that I could get into that lifestyle. And I'm actually very grateful that I was a young homeowner, because I feel like that's a part of the American dream everyone's trying to achieve. Like, there's these milestones that almost like chip at you in the back of your mind of like, oh, I have to do this and do it in this order. So I'm very grateful I did it early on, because it's given me a lot of courage and confidence to do alternative living now. And so, yeah, I bought a house almost immediately after I graduated, probably like 6 or 7 months, lived in the city for about 4 years. I had the house. And it's funny, growing up, it was always my dream of like, I can't wait as a suburban kid to be in that big city. And if you told me a couple years ago I would be on the journey that I am now and have moved to Miami and like seen so much of the world, I would have been like, you're lying. I love Chicago. I'll never leave. And here I am now.
It's amazing the detours that we have in life that come about with just things that happen. You talked about COVID. I mean, COVID kind of seems like that was the catalyst. I know it was a catalyst for me. You know, I'm in live events. I do trade shows, conventions, and all of a sudden, boom, there's none of that's happening. It's like, what do I do? Now I'm doing a podcast, which I absolutely love. I get to live a lot of my adventures through everybody else. It's kind of a joke because I'm not super adventurous like all my guests are. So hearing your stories lights me up because I'm like, wow, this is amazing. What that people, I'm like, really? People hitchhike on trains in the Sahara? Like, what the heck is it's amazing. So go back to that COVID then. how was it that you decided, okay, I'm already an adventurous type person anyway. How did you decide, okay, I'm gonna get a bus, I'm gonna live in a bus? How do you
Yeah.
go about making these
Yeah.
decisions?
It was actually gradual, and I had already had the bucket list, and honestly, I was so scared to do stuff by myself. I think that's a huge thing when people want to branch out. It's either maybe something is too expensive and your friends aren't as passionate about as you. Maybe you didn't even think to reach out to a friend, right? Like now that I have my bucket list, I've actively shared it. I have this huge file that I just share with even strangers that I meet because I'm like, if you're into it, like I'd love to have company. Which was a huge part of that decision for me to try these things is like I want to meet some like-minded folks. And so I had the bucket list, and because everyone had already left and I was thinking about selling my house, I decided I'm like, let me go somewhere that's a little bit more free during the pandemic, that I have more outside opportunity because you're still allowed to do stuff outside. So I found my way down to Florida and lived on a boat. So I kind of did like a trial run before I moved in the van. I'm like, okay, it's all the same systems, like all the same like water, sewage, all that kind of stuff. And it was incredible. Living on a boat, like I would do it again in a heart. I would do all these things again, honestly, in a heartbeat. But yeah, it was. I just worked remotely. I knew that I could live anywhere else, and my life in Chicago just felt stagnant. I'm like, I need to just say yes, take like a small trip. So I actually road trip down from Chicago to Florida before I lived on the boat, and in that time frame, I made it a really extra long road trip. Like typically, it takes if you're going all the way through, maybe 3 days max. And I did it in 4 weeks. And I stopped a bunch of places along the way and really got that courage of like, wow, like I can knock off all these things on my bucket list and have a good time doing it alone. And
And that's
now
what
I
I
don't
want to
have to do
ask
it
you.
alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I want to ask you. You did that alone too. That 4 weeks going down to Florida, you did it alone.
Yeah. I've done most of the adventures I have embarked on alone and just made like incredible friends along the way. Actually, my parents told me, hey, maybe you should stop living on the road and live somewhere permanently and still do your adventures because all the friends I was making are most people who do this stuff are like retired. So all my friends are like 60 plus. And there's some of the the care that people have given me on the road. Like people will send me with like a week's worth of food when they meet me for like an hour and they're like, I hope you're okay. Like just been adopted by so many people. It's so cute. But yeah, I jumped on the road by myself, me and my dog. We stopped in Arkansas to do probably one of the first big adventures I've ever done alone was river surfing in Arkansas. And it was on this road trip because surprisingly, if you find a spot you can kayak in, you can also just grab a big surfboard and surf that same wave. And it's like a perpetual wave. So fun. It was such a funny experience too because I didn't own a surfboard because I'm from Chicago. I'm like, we don't surf. And which, by the way, there are some people that surf in the like upper Midwest. That's on my bucket list. I don't know if you've heard of the ice beard surfers. They're
No, I have
super
not.
badass. I'll have to.
Yeah,
You'll get me
give
on
me an
so many
introduction.
tangents. Yeah, the ice beard surfers are like they live up in Lake Superior where they have some pretty intense waves from the wind
Wow.
and they're known for keeping their really long beards and then they'll come out of the water because they're in the middle of winter surfing.
Frozen
It's
beards.
yeah, just icicle beard. Yes, yeah, they're called the like ice beard surfers. There's actually
Ice
a
beard
documentary
surfers.
about them
Okay.
somewhere, but that's super. I would love to do that. But they just and it's surfing. I don't know if you've ever surfed, but it really the waves really pelt you, and that's part of the difficulty of surfing. It's not really like getting up on the surfboard. So to get pounded with ice waves versus regular warm waves, they're badass. But yeah, I like knew that there was these different ways that you could surf, and I on this road trip stopped in the middle of Arkansas, found this it's kind of a kayaking park, if you will, where people learn how to kayak. So it makes it a lot safer. So you go through this wave. They essentially put rocks in the river to make
To create
a
it.
circular wave. And then you can learn. So I was just paddling in and out, had a full helmet on, full scuba suit, found a random guy on Craigslist that was selling a surfboard in rural Arkansas, met up with him, got my surfboard. And that was really part of what I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie and I got that just that high of like, wow, I like did something amazing on my own. Like I can continue to do more. And that kind of rolled into the experience with the boat. I was like, wow, living on the boat's amazing. It's not nearly as challenging as I thought it would be. I wasn't sure where I wanted to live next. And so after the boat, I came home, immediately sold my house. And so that was all kind of like baby steps periods I had
Sure.
of stopping on those trips and experiences. And then it gave me the courage to say, I actually want to live on the road full time. So I went down this long rabbit hole for a whole year, building all of the schematics for a tiny house on wheels. Ended up going through a huge process where I almost bought a semi truck to haul my tiny house because I had found all of these awesome, incredible rigs that you can build. And the biggest difference with a tiny home versus an RV is like the quality of construction materials. So it's
Gotcha.
extremely heavy to haul. And it's like dangerous to pull it with a regular car versus like an RV. You can use just a really souped up truck. And I'm obsessed with trucks. We always joke. I have a Toyota Tacoma, and my family and I always joke that's like the baby entry level truck. Like 10 years from now, I'm just gonna be
You're going to
riding
be
around
moving
town in
up.
a monster, like just a full monster truck that you'd see in like a derby. That's the dream. But yeah, I really thought I was gonna do the tiny house stuff, and so I lived in a bus to test out what I wanted to build my rig like. Found this awesome rental service. It's kind of like the Airbnb of like RVs, and just tested everything out and learned a ton. Did alternative living after that, and yeah, it just started to roll itself into me doing more and more and more stuff that
Yeah,
yeah,
it just seems like you said, gradual, but it just built and built and built.
exactly.
So those first 4 weeks when you're heading down to Florida, you're by yourself, you're doing this. What did it do for you, like for your confidence and for you as a person?
Such a good question. It just continued to build my confidence. You get those butterflies in your stomach and in your chest when you're doing something alone. Like, it's crazy to me looking back at some of the footage I have of me hiking, doing an extremely easy hike and being so like nervous and talking to myself of like, because I kind of got a little lost on some of the hikes because when you think of hiking, I feel like you're thinking of like national parks where the trails are really easily marked. Whereas in Arkansas, it's differently regulated. And I had also just had not a lot of experience. So even though I came from an outdoorsy family, being alone in the woods as a woman, I'm like, what am I doing? Like 10 hours from my house. Nobody knows where I am. Trying to find this waterfall, then go surfing, do all these things. And even on that trip, I had gone to New Orleans by myself. I'd always wanted to go to New Orleans for Halloween. I like got a full costume on, went out by myself in costume the entire week, which was a very intimidating thing to do because you feel very aware of yourself when you're not only dressed up, but you're alone and you're trying to understand how to socialize. Or when I was alone in New Orleans, for instance, it was a different type of fear than when I was in the woods of like, okay, I need to have my wits about me. I need to understand the location I'm in and make sure that I'm keeping myself safe. But when I was in a city, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of people. New Orleans is famously known for their fun parties. I'm like, I need to make sure that I'm walking into this space safely as well. So I think a lot of it is self-conscious at first of like, or are other people looking at me? And then secondarily, it's safety. Am I doing everything I can to make sure I'm safe? And
Right.
doing all of those things, I am honest, I'm a very true believer in that most people want to do good by you. And that's probably the main confidence I've found both on that trip and everything else I've done is like a lot of the things that you're scared of, you still have to be smart, right? Like you can't walk into like a bad neighborhood at 1 in the morning where everyone's partying, right? Like you need to make conscious decisions and be aware of your surroundings. But I genuinely believe that like all the people I've met, if you're putting out good energy, you're gonna get it back. And I don't think I have honestly one experience I've had. Even some of the had like a gun pulled on me in certain scenarios. Like even in those scenarios, those people actually were really nice. They were like, "What are you doing on my property? You're lost here, little lady." Like, you know what I mean? Um, that
Wow.
happened to me on my school bus. And so like, but they weren't trying to like hurt me or threatening me. And that's a situation where you should be scared. You're like, hey, what's going on?
Wow.
So yeah, I think it was the confidence not just in myself, because that you realize is like you're in your head, nobody's looking at you. I think it was the confidence I had for strangers and others of like, wow, everyone really I think just wants to live their lives and be kind and honestly make connection. Everyone's looking to like make a friend, you know?
Well, I love that you're sharing that because I think sometimes we're intimidated to do something like that because we're afraid of what people will think or what they'll do. But I think you're right. I think people want to reach out and want to help if they can. And just like me doing this podcast, I love talking to so many amazing people and making a connection with people and hearing their stories. I want to ask that too, because you're a young lady, young woman. It's got to be a little bit different. I mean, were your parents nervous? Like here, our daughter's going off by herself. They're probably more worried than you
Yeah.
were specifically, but talk about the safety aspect of it a little bit and kind of being a young
Yeah.
woman and what that's about.
Navigating that at first was very intimidating. I was reading tons of articles about it. My parents have been, God bless them, so supportive of so much I'm doing because I think they saw part of the catalyst that we didn't totally talk about with Chicago is like there is kind of a partying experience in that city that people really enjoy. And I didn't resonate with that. And I was like, I need more variety in my life. I don't want the main social experiences I've had or like going to a bar, which is still super fun. And I think there's something to be had there. But that was part of, I think, where my parents kind of removed that fear of like, hey, she's in a different setting. Maybe it's uncomfortable with us. But she's doing something that's kind of, I guess, maybe more wholesome. Like when you get out of school and you're partying, you're like, okay, let's go out in nature and find people and meet nice, kind strangers. So I think that helped qualm some of their safety concerns. And then also, like, one of the things I found is the intention behind the adventures I'm doing. So I think when you travel to a space and you're going to sightsee without a plan, right? Like anytime I've ever sightseen in a city, I join a sightseeing group. So I'm with people, right? I'm not
Gotcha.
walking around by myself. I'm also not terribly drawn to like the markets and the shopping. I think that's where when I've read online and tried to research like how do you stay safe as a young lady, a lot of people get into trouble where people will like follow them home from the markets because they know that's where people are hanging out. So I think I've had so much success because I've entered into whenever I'm traveling, I'm not going to a place just to be like, hey, I'm just seeing this location. I'm going there for an event that's organized in that space. And I immediately have friends built in. So like I went to Portugal and I did this surfing trip in Portugal and it was kind of intimidating to be there by myself for the first 48 hours that I was there and then I was added into a group. So I immediately had friends to go out at night cuz that is the number one thing when you're traveling alone is like don't be out at night by yourself, like do things during the daytime. I've heard some tips that people will say of like as a young lady like if you're single and moving through the world wear like a fake wedding ring and if people approach you tell them like your man's at the hotel or something. I've never had that be necessary. And I think yeah, as long as you're intentional about it. My parents, God bless them, have been really great about it. The only thing they were up in arms about was my Africa trip. The That was really hard for them. They were very upset with me.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned Portugal. I want to hit on some of these adventures because,
Yeah.
I kind of wrote a list of some of the things you've done. You've kind of alluded to a few of them. Hiking on
Mhm.
trains in the
Mhm.
Sahara. I got to hear about this. This seems
That's Yeah, that's
crazy.
the
Is
Africa
this the
trip
one?
my
Okay.
family
This is the
was.
one they were. All right.
This is where they drew the line. Like the rowing that I'm doing now, they're like, okay, great, it's supported. But Africa was, we kind of discussed as a family, we're like, what is your risk threshold versus mine? And that's really kind of what you have to gauge, right? Is people just have a different level of what risk is worth the reward. And I think a lot of people with that trip were like, what is the reward? It's kind of like, like the different types of fun where there's like type one, type two, type three fun. Have you
Yeah,
heard
and
of this?
I wanted to ask, well, I've heard of it, and I was going to ask. That was a question I actually had for you because you
Really?
keep talking about Type 3 fun, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what is Type 3 fun?
Yeah, I think a
So,
lot of people would classify this Africa trip as type 3 fun, where so type 1 fun is where you do something like you went to the beach, you had a good day, it was
okay,
easy and it was
yeah,
fun. Makes sense. Type 2
perfect.
fun is like you go and you do a workout that makes you throw up. So, it wasn't fun. You weren't having a good time, but afterwards you're like, "Awesome. Glad I did it.
Yeah,
I look
sweet.
back, it was
Okay,
fun." Type 3 fun is where it's not fun at all and you look back and it still wasn't really fun, but it was an awesome story.
you
Like
chalk
maybe
it
you
up to
got,
experience type
yeah,
of
yeah, you
fun,
learned from it.
I guess.
I personally would describe my Africa trip as type 2 fun.
Okay,
I think my family and a lot of people would describe it as type 3 fun of like, it wasn't fun. Why did you do it? Not worth it. But I just wanted to explore this other side of the world. I had heard about, it's called the desert snake. It's the world's deadliest train in the middle of the Sahara Desert. And it's considered the world's deadliest train because it's the longest train, one of the heaviest trains in the world, and the environment that it's in is extremely harsh. So there's nothing for hundreds of miles around this train, really. And so if you fall off, you're in the middle of the Sahara, you're just kind of whatever happens, happens. And then the heat exchange and the temperatures in the area are super dangerous. And people started to see that people were jumping into these train cars to get themselves from the mining town to the other part of the town. It's in a country called Mauritania, right underneath Morocco. And I don't know, there was just something about it that really called to me of like, I want to say that I achieved that. And really the hardest part about it was the trip to get there. It was like a 3-day trip just to get to the train, of just driving through what kindly to say that they were roads. They were not really roads. We're just driving over sand dunes. Like, I honestly have no idea how my driver knew where he was going. I was like, where are we? We're just in the middle of the
In the
desert
middle
for
of the
days.
desert.
It was so wild. So fun. I had seen such a different part of the world that like really opened my eyes. And then I got on the train and they kind of do a swap, right? Where we've been driving for 3 days. I hired a guide. I did this alone as well. And that was really intense for a lot of people because it was also a country where women kind of are a little bit more like covered, hidden. They're just not out and about in the world as frequently in that space. And so I immediately stood out. Also, as like a blonde woman in that space, you're like, where is she coming from? I'm like, I'm so hi.
By yourself too, no less.
So
Wow.
I found a guide who took me. I saw a lot of really cool history along the road as well. And then made my way to the train and they did like a swap. So this guy who was driving us left us there and they didn't tell us that this was a part of the trip experience. And they also didn't tell us when the times of the train were, because this is the only train that really exists in this country. And it's huge exports. Like 40% of their GDP is from this train and what it transports.
Wow.
And so it just does its own thing. It's not like meant to transport people. And so they just go when they go. And sometimes they're like an hour to 5 hours behind or vice versa. And so it's kind of a gamble when you get dropped off. And our driver just left us. And we're near this pretty intense, intimidating mining town. Very few women around. And then truly in the middle of the Sahara at this point, where it was starting to get pitch black. My guide was starting to get really nervous. And I was like, okay, if I could be nervous, but you shouldn't be nervous. Like, what's going on here? And fortunately, as we'd been hanging out in the train area waiting for it to arrive, someone had casually wanted to like chat with me because they're like, oh, who's this stranger here? This is like weird that she's here. I asked to take a photo with me and left. Turns out he was the train conductor. And so what happened in this experience was there's 2 stops at the beginning of the train. There's the train car, the engine that pulls all of the weighted cars that have been filled up with supplies. And then there's those supply cars. And so it's unclear where the train starts. It's either of those spots, but they don't say when or how. And so the engine car picked up one of the cars and then left and went the other direction. So we're like, oh my God, like it's not going to come pick us up. We're just going to be stranded here and have no one to call. There's not really, it was a whole situation. But lo and behold, that guy who had spoken to me and asked to take a photo together came back and he's like, I didn't forget about you. Like, I'm the train conductor. And this was it was 10 hours that we were waiting. It was really scary. That was the only moment I was like, maybe this is type 3 fun. I'm like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? I'm stranded in the Sahara Desert by myself. Like, what am I doing? And then we got on the train and it was like some of the best stargazing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, you feel like you're like floating in space because you're just laying in this train car. You climb in, you
Okay,
sit
that's what I
on
was going to
top
ask.
of the ore.
You're not like
Yeah.
sitting in like an Amtrak thing.
No.
You're like just in these cars out in the open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's basically extreme camping. And honestly, I will say it's marketed as the world's deadliest train. That's because of the risk that it takes to get there and the environment that it's in. But the train goes like 25 miles per hour max. And it's a 20-hour ride. So if you're careful about it and you're not like messing around,
Yeah.
it's not actually like as unsafe as I think a lot of people will make it out to be.
Okay.
Certainly it's not a safe activity though. Like, it's certainly still the type 2 fun, but gosh, it was like I was so proud of myself, like the confidence stuff we were talking about, that like skyrocketed my confidence of like I was able to execute a plan where I was safe and accomplish something very out of the ordinary that very few people have the chance to try, see these new parts of the world, do it in what I felt was a really respectful way, and come out the other side to share the story. And it was,
Amazing.
God, it was so fun. It was awesome.
I love talking to you about this because it's fun seeing your face kind of light up as we talk about this. That's why, I tell people, if you want to see what you look like, go to YouTube and watch it on YouTube because it's fun to see
Uh-huh.
people's reaction. I did audio only for the longest time and I was getting the benefit of it. No one else was. And now everyone else
Yeah.
can get the benefit of seeing you just like tell these stories. All right. There's a few more places. I'm not going to be able to talk about everyone because I really want to get to, some of your personal dealings with the cancer and everything. But I mean, just some of the things I read about. Okay, making brownies in Iceland, dog attack, like you had dogs like attacking you for
Yeah.
training purposes, things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, just so many, a floating grocery store.
Yeah. That one was my favorite. The grocery
Okay,
store is
yeah,
probably
so tell that
my
story.
other favorite. The
Let's hear that
brownies
one.
is fun though. If you've ever seen, there's like a TV show from Zac Efron from a while ago on Netflix where he bakes bread in the ground in Iceland, and you can do that on your own. So I highly recommend, if you go to Iceland, go do that yourself. Bring some supplies. I fully put on like a baking show with one of my girlfriends, and we were doing that at like 11 p.m. at night because of the midnight sun there. So fun. But and surprisingly enough, this same girl who joined me on that journey joined me on the grocery boat excursion where I had been traveling to Turkey for a wedding. And now that I live in Florida, I knew that, I don't know if you've heard of this, but we kind of have like food trucks on the water that are pontoons.
Okay.
It's so fun. So people will go and they'll anchor their boats at a sandbar, and then a pontoon will show up that's like a pizza pontoon, and they'll start delivering like pizza to people or ice cream or beer or like fried calamari. Like there's just a weird variety of little food trucks in Florida. I'm like, this is amazing.
But on the water.
What is this? And so I started researching. I went down this rabbit hole of like, maybe I'm gonna own a pontoon food truck, and then found this lore about this major grocery chain in Turkey called Migros. So it's kind of like our Publix. It's a real legitimate grocery store, and they just decided to buy a yacht and turn it into a grocery store that fully services like all of the boats in that region, because these boaters and these sailboats and these yachts will go around and park somewhere that it's very inaccessible for them to get access to food, and they just want to continue to stay on the water. And so I like, it was quite a journey to track the boat itself down, because I was calling the grocery store, and first of all, I'm abroad, so they're like, American numbers don't always work with some of the numbers abroad, especially the customer service. And then I'm calling this actual grocery store, this legitimate grocery chain, and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to track down your boat. And they're like,
They're
you're
like,
calling
what
a
are you
grocery store. Like, what are
talking
you
about?
saying? It's like, I was like, I know you're a grocery store, but I swear you guys own a boat. I swear to God. Like I had found like really small little clips online where they were super grainy little clips, and I was just like screenshotting them to try and figure out what the phone number was on the side of the boat, and got to the little town that I know that it like embarks from, and that's where they park the boat. And I just did it on the fly. I was like, I have a couple days before this wedding. It's really a coastal town called Fethiye. Super beautiful, by the way, like one of the prettiest places I've ever been. And I just like, I parked there and I said, hey, I just need to ask a bunch of locals, like, have you heard of this boat? How do I get to it? And I found a boat captain who had heard of it, and we essentially like chartered with him, like booked him for the day, and followed this boat the whole time. Meanwhile, I had gotten a chance, I got a hold of one of the clerks that worked at the grocery store and was like texting them throughout the day, being like, hey, where do you guys go? Like, how do we find you? And so they knew we were coming and like gave us a final location. Like it took us probably 4 hours to get to the same meeting point of where they were parked, because the boat only stays in one spot for probably 20 minutes at a time because they're in and out servicing people. And we found it, and it was a full like 3-story yacht, full grocery store where like it's like a CVS combined with what you would get at Publix, where you're getting everything you could possibly want, like lotions, soaps, like they even had clothes. I bought some flip-flops at the grocery store. And we bought like a bunch of snacks for our road trip when we got off the boat. And they actually had to pick us up in a smaller boat. So this big grocery yacht has its own little boat that comes and picks you up to take you to it. And we got a full tour of it. Like, it
Wow.
was truly one of the most magical experience. And that was just all type 1 fun. That was like, there was 0 moments on that trip that I wasn't having an absolute blast. Like, it was so fun. And I got good groceries from it too. Like, I got some honey that I like brought home with me. I was like using my Turkish honey in my tea. I was like, this is so amazing. It's like thinking about the boat every time I had tea every morning.
It's amazing because it's things that people don't think of. I mean, the hitchhiking in the desert in the Sahara, on the
Hmm.
train, no one thinks of that. Are you just drawn to those kind of adventures, this kind of the obscure things that no one thinks about?
Yes, I am definitely drawn to the wild and wacky and have been since I was young. I love just like thrill of a good story and a good experience. I think that they're usually intentional. There's something about them that I'm passionate about. Like with the boat, as silly as it sounds, it's kind of like the tiny house stuff I was really obsessed with, where like somebody who takes a big rig and turns it into something like custom and unique is really exciting to me. And then also just, I mean, that's just a good time. But I think I draw inspiration from other adventures that I've seen, and then I try and curate them into my own experience. Like the grocery yacht was something I don't know where that came out of. I just end up down these internet rabbit holes, and I'm like, how do I experience this? Like, I need it. And now I'm like, with my row and going through my cancer, I'm like, I just want to like show and share with other people this like excitement I have for adventure and silly things. Because even when you go through hard things, like if you actively seek joy and interest in your life, like you can find it. And now I'm just like, oh, I just want to like take these weird things that are meshing around up in my head and bring them to life. So it's, yeah.
I love it. And that's a perfect segue because I do want to talk to you about your cancer, what's going on
Hmm.
with that. I think what was it, late 2024 when you were diagnosed?
Yeah.
Kind of how did it lead up to that? Did
Yeah.
you notice something was going on? Just kind of give me this background story on that because you're in the middle of doing these adventures when this came about.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I will say a lot of that was like hobby. So I still had my like normal like job software online. And then just I had a standard checkup with the doctor where they feel your neck typically at these checkup appointments. And they felt a small lump right above my collarbone, which is where your thyroid is. And they were very casual. And this was my OBGYN. So pretty standard checkup. Many women go through similar procedures that I have. And because I'm young and healthy, everyone was very casual when they told me about that lump. And something in my gut just told me, this was back in November 2024, so almost 7 months ago at this point. And something in my gut just told me, like, this is more intense or this is more serious than you think it is. That's something I would encourage anyone to do is like trust yourself. Don't be worried you're a hypochondriac. Your health is essential. So even though I had no symptoms, nothing else was going on, um, I could feel something was going on in my head. And I'll never forget, I talked to one of my friends and told him, because I had such a hard time from someone telling me I had a lump to actually getting that lump looked at and getting a report on that. I was telling my friend, just complaining about some of the hoops and jumps that I had to go through with the healthcare system. And I think he could feel something off in me when I shared that with him of me complaining about the healthcare. And he looked at me and he was like, don't be surprised if it is cancer. Like one of my friends was itchy for an entire year, couldn't figure out why. Turns out he had, I think it was lymphoma or something. Sure enough, I finally got my ultrasound after getting turned away by multiple doctors, unable to get prescriptions. I had felt more lumps on other parts of my neck. And that's really what cued me in of like, I know this is hard, but you need to get this report. Like you need to get this scan done. And then when they did the scan, they were like, this is really advanced. It was metastasized. So it had spread from my thyroid and the cells had invaded other parts of my body in what's called your lymph nodes. And it was all just super fast going to action from there, which I'm so fortunate. Like of all we talked about, that's kind of always how I've lived my life. If something intense happens, I let myself sit in it, but then I'm like, what is the next immediate step? And now here I am, 3 months post-op, 3 months to my big treatments, which by the way, my doctors told me it'll take like 6 to 8 plus months for you to get treatment from learning that there was metastatic cancer that we needed to find and confirm with a biopsy where they take the cells out of your body to actually getting surgery. It was only probably 4 weeks. And I
Wow.
put my full-time job down and honestly picked up getting treatment like a full-time job because I was on the phone almost like a sales rep, like every day, trying to work the system to get my appointments because I was told it would be about 4 months before I could even get an appointment to confirm that I had cancer. After I got all these reports, I'm like, it's very clear. Like all of my doctors, like one of them walked into the room, looked at my neck, didn't even touch me, didn't look at any of my reports. And she's like, I can see it on you. I was like, what? I was like, I've had this for like 2 years. I had no idea.
Wow.
I actually posted some pictures on my Instagram that you can see of me looking back at my photos where I'm like, holy
You could see a
God,
lump
like
or whatever.
I
Like,
could see them in my photos.
wow.
And I was joking with my friends. I'm like, I better be so snatched after this surgery. Like, I want them to just, my neck better look so good. Like, if I'm going to have to go through this, might as well get some benefits out of it. But truly, like, you could see the lumps on my neck. It was crazy. And that was really frustrating. It's like, I'd been told I had cancer. And then you're kind of like, I can't share with people that I have it because it's not official. It's never official till you have a biopsy and they pull cells out of you. So even though all of my doctors, which it's not as common as well, that they'll tell you have cancer before the biopsy is complete, everyone was, thank God, very excellent healthcare that I've had. They really wanted to prepare me and say, hey, you need to accept and get to a place mentally that you know you have cancer because it's pretty confirmed. Now we just need to know what kind, get the biopsy to confirm that you're allowed to get the surgeries because that's really the steps you need to go through for insurance.
Wow. Okay. So you find out you have cancer, and you said something earlier. You said you allow yourself to sit in it for a minute and then you take action. For you, sitting in it, what does that mean? Like, what do you, when you say you're going to sit in it for a minute, is that just you realizing what you have and kind of
Yeah.
internalizing, or what does that mean to you?
Yeah. I think sitting in it is, I think sometimes in today's world, we feel that we have to be happy all the time and that if we're sad, it's an issue. But part of being able to enjoy the hard things is literally like we keep saying it, type 2 fun. Doing something hard is what makes you appreciate things that aren't. And that is something I would encourage anyone going through a tough situation to realize is don't be upset with yourself that you're angry or sad. So I think that's really what sit with it meant to me is I allowed myself to grieve what I thought my future would look like, grieve the changes that would inevitably come with this, and then say, hey, this isn't it. What can we do to make it better? So I think it's very important, and especially for me, like I like to just emote aggressively. So I handled it, I sat with it, I went through the appointments. My doctors were so kind to me when I was getting my biopsy. It was like an hour long of them just sticking needles in my neck and extracting. Like I had tons of bruises on my neck afterwards, just from the biopsy, not from the surgery. And my doctors were like, wow, you're such a champion. And I'm like, what do you mean? Don't people just sit here and take it? Like, I'm like, I don't, I certainly cried after when I'm like, okay, this is happening to me. But I think letting yourself be upset is very important into being able to find the other joy, you know?
I like that. I'm glad you're sharing that, because I think sometimes, yeah, you think you're right. I think when we think, okay, if I'm upset or I'm sad for something, that, okay, something's wrong and you got to just try to fix that. But you're right. You appreciate the things. So it's the type 2, like you mentioned. You go through it and then you appreciate it. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you had surgery, what'd you say, 3 months ago? What
Yeah, I
did they
had
do?
surgery probably, I guess, 5 months ago at this point.
Okay.
It was in December that I had surgery. So
Okay.
I knew something was wrong in like November. Took a long time to figure out. I knew something was suspicious, and then I knew something was actually wrong in November. So that was that really long process I had. And then December, I had surgery, and I had a very extensive surgery. So most people with this cancer, maybe they'll have like half of their thyroid just taken out of their body, or maybe they'll have a couple lymph nodes, like we talked about, where I had infection essentially higher up. So they might have 2 to 5 tumors on average. I had 23. So it was really long surgery. It was about 8 hours of surgery, and the recovery period was a lot longer than I had anticipated it being. So my body just kind of like atrophied on me. That's when I was still actively making decisions about what treatment plans I needed to do next. And I think that kept me out of a really dark place because it was a very sad realization to go through. But because I had tasks that I needed to handle, it like kept me positive and in motion. And I had these tubes hanging out of me for probably a month and a half or so from December. So that was part of what extended my recovery experience because some people recover from the surgery after like 2 weeks. I had these, they're called drain tubes. They collect fluid, like post surgical fluid afterwards. So I had these, and my doctors, I just don't think they knew that I was extreme of a person as I am. And they kind of just tell you, like, do what feels right to you. So, me being who I am, like, I had these tubes hanging out of me, and I went to a spin class. And my doctors were like, you could, yeah, if you could want to walk, you want to sit on a bike. I'm like, okay, spin class is sitting on a bike. Like, I can do that.
With these
Exacerbated.
tubes.
Oh my gosh. The spin class teacher must have been like, what in the cyborg? It just walked into my class. Very sweet about it though. And I was so excited. I'm like, wow, I'm like really healing really fast. And then I had these really intense side effects from my surgery where there was some like leakage or like holes in some of the areas they had cut that created kind of a nutrient deficiency for me. And so I had to go on all these really extreme diets to manage the leak and like close it. So I was on a zero, not like low fat, like zero fat diet for a month and a half where I was pretty much eating vegetable broth, mushrooms, and arugula. And that was it. And it was so funny. Like when I finally gotten off that diet, I ate something like just tiny bit of fat. I ate like a piece of crispy rice that you get at the sushi store and just got an immediate high from it. I was sitting at the table and fully up in the clouds. It was like I had taken some substances. I was like, what is going on? I was like
Wow.
getting high from eating for like 2 weeks after all of I was allowed to eat normal again. So I did that. And then I had radiation treatment right
Wow.
after I had finally gotten recovered from some of those surgery complications. And now I've been able to like get back on my feet, feel healthy again, and start like getting to the gym and train for this row.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. That in and of itself, just the, I mean, and I look at you here, you look great. I
Thank you.
couldn't tell anything, you're going through what you're going through and you're still in the
Hmm.
middle of it. You're still in the middle of that battle. You're
Yeah.
training for this row.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about this row because I know it's also for cancer, like it's for awareness and fundraising. Can you
Yeah.
kind of tell us about that?
So the row was already on my bucket list and I'd known about it for about 3 years because ocean rowing was just something super badass to me. I'm like, wow, these people who typically ocean row, they take vessels that kind of look like the rescue ships on cruise ships and they make them manually rowable and self-sustainable. So they have water reclamation systems, solar, all the good stuff. And people originally started doing this rowing from cross Atlantic from Europe to America. So it's about a 40-day journey, super badass. I was like, how do I do this shorter? So I found this organization called the Noman Campaign, who does a small scale one for 3 days from Barcelona to Ibiza. They only do it every year. So I've been in contact with this race director. And then lo and behold, I became a cancer survivor. They
Wow.
had already been their own cancer foundation. They do like HPV related cancer. But still, I'm like, wow, like this has never been more meaningful to me. I've already wanted to do this. I love taking on physical challenges. Now I really want to do this to kind of conquer my cancer journey, right? Like I didn't want to just heal from cancer and get through it. Like I wanted to rise above it because I'm still having quite a lot of symptoms from some of the changes now that I don't have my thyroid because your thyroid controls like all of your hormones in your body. So training with those side effects has been pretty intense. And this is certainly the hardest physical challenge I've ever taken on. So, yeah, it just worked out beautifully. I knew that I wanted to do this row, became a cancer survivor, reached out to the race director. Now, come July, I'm going to be sitting beside a former Olympian. She was like a Olympian for Great Britain rowing, and two other amazing women that I've never met before. And we're going to be just doing our hardest rowing 72 hours straight. So there's not really any sleep in between either. You just keep rowing. You take little breaks and like little naps. It's like 2 hours on, 2 hours off for the group of 4 women together. And I'm so stoked. I'm
Wow.
getting really excited. I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
Wow. That's amazing. Your adventures and all the things you're doing, I know you're shooting like off a horse, you're doing some crazy
Huh?
adventures that you've done.
Huh?
How do you think that has prepared you for this cancer diagnosis or has it?
I think it absolutely has. I think that, like we talked about, doing things that scare you help build your confidence and your resilience. And I think the cancer has also helped me in a way. So it helped me because I knew that I was a person that took action in problem situations and I can be calm and strong. But I think even more so, the cancer has helped influence what I want to continue doing with some of these challenges because at first I felt like it kind of took away this. I was very angry at the idea that you feel so powerful when you're young and invincible. Like nothing can stop you, nothing can hurt you because the idea of aging and being frail is so far away. And the cancer, I felt like I'm like, oh, I've been like robbed of that feeling that I've always felt like invincible. Like I'm just out here doing these crazy things. I'm like, why not? And I actually think now that I've had a chance to heal and look back on it, I've been given this new insight into why I'm doing the things I am. Like before, I couldn't tell you why I wanted to do that trip to Africa. And now I can say very definitively, I wanted to prove to myself that I could. I wanted to do something challenging and scary and open my eyes to that and remind myself that going through hardship makes you better. And not that it was like the hardest thing ever. Like there's a lot of people going through harder things, but I think that I feel blessed that I have this like maturity and insight that a lot of people my age don't have on what things that we value in our lives and how to like walk through the world now that I've like gone through what I've had and really thought about my mortality a lot, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And speaking of your age, how old are you?
I'm 29.
29. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I mean, in your 20s, you're already healthy. So getting this
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis, just kind of like, where did this come from? It just seems, you're doing the right things. You're staying healthy. You're being active. So it's
Yeah.
just it's wild. And I'm glad that you feel like there's some correlation that it prepared you for some of that. That's amazing. I did want to ask you too, kind of what the future holds. Like, what do you decide? You got this road coming up. What
Mm-hmm.
other adventures do you have in mind? What other things you want to do moving forward?
Yes. So this one is a huge top like priority for me. I have one of them that I'm really excited about. And part of why I'm sharing all of this now. So I decided after I had gone on medical leave, I'm gonna do this full time. This is something that I'm passionate about. It's what I want to share with others. I would love to get to a place where I can create adventures that others, including strangers, can join me on. Because that's a huge part of what's driven me in my adventures is not just I am passionate about this, but I would love to meet other people who are excited about this and can share other things with me. So I would love to include folks, and I'm just going to keep doing lots of crazy journeys. Like noodling is on the top of my list. I don't know if you've ever heard of noodling.
No.
Um,
I'm like, what is noodling?
Noodling is crazy. Noodling is borderline. This is one of the things my family is like, hey,
You're
let's
pushing the
pause here.
level. You're pushing part type 3.
Noodling is a type of fishing where you're
The
fishing for,
catfish.
yes, where you stick your hand in like
Yeah.
a,
Okay.
oh yeah.
That's
Yeah, so
noodling.
it's
Okay. I've seen that on, I've seen some YouTube videos and things of that.
noodling is crazy. So you basically let a fish bite your hand and you grab them and like pull them out of the water. So that I would love to try. That's like goes back to kind of the inspiration for adventures I do since I was young because I was always like hunting and fishing. One of them I'd love to do. I love like are you into truffles? Like you like Italian like pasta and
Of
truffles?
course. Sounds yummy. Let's do it.
Delicious. So I don't have you heard of truffle pigs before?
No.
So
See, you're always got the wild and wacky things, like you said. There are
I
always these
do.
things I've never heard of, which is
I'm so
fantastic.
drawn to them.
No. What is
They
this?
So truffle pigs, they don't use them as much anymore, so it'll be hard for me to track down. But in Italy, where truffles are grown, they're just grown in the wild. You have to go find them and hunt them down. So before, historically, they used to use pigs for it because pigs have such an excellent sense of smell. But the pigs, apparently, the truffle scent emulates the scent that a pig in heat would have. And so the boy pigs or the female pigs or whatever that were going for the truffles would get insane and ravenous when they found the truffles and eat them. And I'm sure you've had truffle. Truffle is very expensive. So the people were getting very upset. So like we finally found them and then our pigs were
Pigs
eating
were just
them.
eating them. Yeah.
So they've changed now when they search for truffles, they're usually using dogs. But my mission would be to go to Italy, which already so fun, and find me like an original. I want to see an OG truffle pig, find some truffles, and then make those in some pasta. So it's stuff like that. I have lots, and I have you wouldn't believe my list is like 100+ long.
And
So
I have no
yeah,
doubt you'll do that. Just talking to you and who you are, I have no doubt. I mean, you found the floating grocery store. I just,
Thank you.
you're gonna do it. I mean,
Thank you. You'll have to come with
it's
me.
amazing.
Now you want to this might be an adventure you'll have to come on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is what's so fun about doing this for me. And thank you so much, Brooke, because this has been amazing to me. You're an inspiration. You really are. I appreciate what you're doing. I'm glad you're going to share this with everybody because I think it's important and I love what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
And yeah, it's just I talk to so many great people. It motivates me to do things that I would have never done. Again, I said I'm not super adventurous, but now I talk to people I'm like, I could go, I could go find a floating grocery store off Turkey. That maybe I could,
Yeah,
So
grocery
so
store,
thank you.
super fun. The truffle experience, also not life-threatening in any way, just a
Yeah.
really good time.
Yeah, exactly. Just a really good time.
And you get to eat
I love
delicious
it.
pasta at the end of it, which is like, who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah.
That of all the trips that I planned, everyone says yes to. I still have other trips that people are like the noodling. They're like, no, thank you. But the truffle one, I get a lot of requests to be like, call me when you plan that. So
Yeah.
we'll
All
make
right.
a whole team out of it.
I love it. So since you are being public about this and you want people to know about this, where can people follow along? Where can they find your information? That way people can follow along with your adventures and your story.
Yes. So I'm on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. YouTube is primarily where I'm going to be sharing the entire stories like we shared today. I could talk about it as I'm sure people are feeling. I'm a very chatty lady. I have lots to share. And that's a huge part of what I want to do with YouTube is like, for instance, I'm posting this week a video about the Africa experience and going on the world's deadliest train. So I'll be sharing all of those on YouTube, but you can find anything on Instagram and on TikTok. And it's Brooks Joyrides is where you'd find me. So Brooks Joyrides, you can find me on brooksjoyrides.com as well. And if anyone is interested in donating to the cause, the row that I'm doing is a cancer foundation. So I have pledged the goal is about $18,000 for both HPV related cancer to support Noman, who organizes the race. But then I also have done a separate pledge for my cancer, for thyroid cancer, because I've received so much help and education from some of the foundations there. And I really want to make sure that I can give back to those folks who helped me go through my treatments. So anyone who wants to contribute. And also one of the things like I really want to encourage with my sharing is not just sharing my story with others, but creating a community where people can ask me questions, whether it's about learning how to find the confidence to go and try something on your own, finding joy in your life, or asking questions about your health. By no means am I a doctor, but I'd love to share with people my experience with healthcare, being an advocate for myself, because truly, like, I would not even have treatment yet had I like sat and just said, this is what the doctors told me, this is what I'm doing. So anything I can do to share with others on how they can find joy in their lives or help them with their own like medical experiences and give them that confidence, I would really encourage people to actually reach out directly to me, ask me questions. And that's one of the main reasons I want to share these things with people.
Perfect. Love that. Thank you for doing that and being willing to speak to people about that. I think that's important. All right, my favorite question. I know we've been chatting for a while and I love this, but my favorite question for you, Brooke, what does adventure mean to you?
Yeah. I think adventure to me it's important to separate adventure from like travel, right? Adventure is intentionally trying something new. I think that's really how I would define adventure because you can do something adventurous that might be as simple as like going and learning a new skill. Like I would define that as adventure of like you could go to like a language class locally and you're doing it out of the blue. There's no reason. It's not like I have to do this. It's you willingly without necessity seek something new in your life. That is key to me for like what adventure would be.
Love it. Brooke, thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was so awesome to share my story, and hopefully it resonates with some of the folks that are listening, and they reach out, and I can make some new friends along the way. And I have a new friend here too, so it was
Absolutely
so awesome.
What an incredible conversation with Brooke King, from hitching rides on trains to the Sahara to bravely facing thyroid cancer. Brooke truly shows us what it means to live boldly and with purpose. Her upcoming ocean row isn't just an adventure, it's a powerful statement of resilience, strength, and hope. If you'd like to follow Brooke and support her journey, check out the links in the show notes. You can also find her on Instagram at Brooks Joyrides or visit her website, brooksjoyrides.com. for more, including her YouTube and other social channels. Thanks for tuning in to Journey with Jake. If Brooke's story inspired you, please share this episode with someone who could use a little motivation. And if you haven't already, leaving a rating or review helps others find these powerful stories, and I'd truly appreciate it. Next week, we're keeping the adventure going with Ken Posner, an endurance runner, hiker, and yes, he does it all barefoot. I know what you're thinking, another runner, but trust me, Ken's story is unlike any other. Don't miss it. Just remember, it's not always about the destination as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.